Welcome to another episode of the Luke Humphrey Running Podcast. I'm your host, Luke Humphrey, and our mission is to help you maximize your training through a blend of science and practicability. So let's get going. All right, guys, welcome back. I just wanted to go over something pretty quick. Could be a short one for us today, but I'm looking at an article. You guys know one of my favorite websites is mysportscience.com, and just had a recent post on there about high carbohydrate and overtraining symptoms, which I think is important because I think a lot of people will tend to confuse being in the state of cumulative fatigue versus just not having enough fuel for their bodies, right? And so just an interesting study that he did in 2004. He's kind of rehashing that. So there's two charts on here, and I'll link the page in the notes here. But in any case, so basically looked at a group of runners and trained them from. They did basically 11 days of fairly hard training. So you kind of have to put that in a little bit of perspective. So I think a lot of you training for a marathon would say that you train pretty hard over 11 days straight, right? So we run 6 days a week for the most part, and 3 workouts. So over 11 days you're talking 4 or 5 workouts, and then a lot of easy running in there too. So I think a lot of you would consider it. I think I would agree. I think you would fall into that hard training. Like we know you're not going to do a workout every single day, but you're putting in work every single day. So I think it's important to notice that. So 11 days of intensified running has a marked effect on performance. So by 11 days, they saw a significant decrease in performance, and a lot of this was affected by the carbohydrate. So from a week out to 11 days out, they started really tracking what kind of performance. So let's put this in perspective. So by 11 days out, they were seeing roughly an 8% decrease in performance, and that was based on low carbohydrate. So 5.4 grams per kilogram of body weight. That would show them to give them almost an 8% decrease in performance. So the chronic lower carbohydrate diet, and then versus a higher carbohydrate diet, which is 8.5 grams per kilogram of body weight, they only saw a decrease of about 2.5%. So, and this is an intensified period. So they kind of rationed it off as being like at a training camp or something, which most of you aren't. But the point I think is that over an extended period of time, that chronic low carbohydrate is going to decrease performance. So I see this a lot, especially when people start increasing their mileage, going from kind of doing a base plan and just kind of running for fun, and then getting into a structured plan, or something that a lot of times what I'll see with the Hanson's Marathon method is they'll jump into the schedule, and it's significantly more than what they've done in the past, and so they automatically assume that they're tired because of cumulative fatigue. And in reality, it's way too early to be in cumulative fatigue, but they're really probably feeling something more along these lines, where they're just not getting enough carbohydrate in per day. So let's take a look at my notes. So they're saying that it makes repeated days of hard training result in accumulation fatigue, which I don't think is any big surprise to anybody here. But then they say also that it makes things that would be easy much more difficult, which again, hard training is going to make you see this a lot too. You're getting into the point where early on in the season, your easy days you're ripping right along and you're running very well. And then you get to a point after a few weeks of workouts, you're like, oh my gosh, my easy runs are slower. Why is that? And so, no, that's part of it. Part of it is just the training process. But even within 7 days, athletes can feel the symptoms of overreaching, which we've talked about in the past. Overreaching is not necessarily a bad thing, but you don't really want to go much beyond that. Once you go beyond that, you're talking into overtraining type of situation, and then you're talking about needing significant time off. Overreaching, especially when you get just before the taper, isn't a bad thing because that's almost the state you want to be in. That's really kind of cumulative fatigue. But then we pull it back on the taper, and then you actually increase your performance. All right, so they took 2 groups of runners, same training period, and they did that twice. And so randomly received 2 diets. One was 5.4 grams of kilogram, 5.4 grams of carbs per kilogram of body weight per day. So this would be kind of a normal endurance diet. So you're looking, probably fell in that 50 to 60% daily calories. And then they took another group and did 8.5 grams of carbohydrate per kilogram per day. So significantly more. And even the higher carbohydrate diet was, what they found was the higher carbohydrate diet preserved performance and mood much better than the lower carbohydrate diet. So I described their first chart, and you can take a look at that if you follow the links there. But then the second chart they have actually shows the 11 days, and you have a significantly increase in the decrease of mood. So they felt worse over the course of 11 days, and so their mood had bigger mood disturbances, things like that. So you see that a lot too. You kind of get that that hangry feeling, or you're just kind of in a grumpy mood just because you've been training hard. But some of that is actually coming back from not having enough carbohydrates. So a lot of you are probably hearing that 8.5 grams a day is a lot. But my concern would be that I don't think a lot of you are even getting that 5.4 grams per kilogram of body weight per day. I just don't. Knowing what people talk about on the Facebook group and some of my athletes and stuff, I just know that they're not necessarily getting those things in during their training. But the problem with that is that they want to blame the training, which it is. Part of it is the training. The training is causing the depletion in the carbohydrate, but it's your responsibility as a runner, and my responsibility as a runner, to replace what I'm burning, right? So I know people I don't want to go high carbs, but regardless of how well you burn fat, you're still burning a lot of carbohydrates. So you need to make sure that you're replacing that, and you just overall will just feel better. So just looking at my notes here, so I would say that a lot of athletes I see are really in this state, and really before I want them to be in this state. Again, I think a lot of people tend to be in this kind of mood disturbance and decreased performance way too soon. And I think instead of just jumping the gun and saying that, hey, I'm overtrained, this is what I would look at. I mean, I would look at, Map My has great tools for free where you can actually just, I'm not a big fan of tracking calories for long periods of time, but if you get into this stage and say you're following the advanced marathon plan and it's an 18-week plan, you still have 8 to 10 weeks to go and you're feeling like your performances are decreasing, this is one of the first things that I would look at. And so we could get a grasp on that. And the nice thing is, if we see this early enough, we can fix it early enough too. This isn't a hard fix, right? We can get those carbohydrates in, rebuild what you've depleted, and you'll feel better. Performance will start coming back around. If you give it a week or so, I would be safe to bet you would feel 100 times better than what you were feeling. And that's the big thing that I want people to recognize is cumulative fatigue is a state that I want you in, but it's how we get there. So I want you to be tired, but I also want it to be from the training itself and not added things that we're doing, right? So by not eating, not replacing the fuels that were needed. And so there's a big difference between that. So just so you know, I'm kind of reading through here a little bit, but a diet of, they're saying that a diet of 5.4 grams is very common carbohydrate intake for endurance and other athletes. A high carbohydrate condition consisted of 8.5 grams, high but not extreme, because they often see people taking in 10 grams per kilogram per day. And that's a lot. 10 grams per kilogram is a lot. But and you got to understand too that they're looking at pretty highly trained athletes. So you extrapolate that out to, say, a 4-hour marathoner. I'm not necessarily worried about the 8.5, but I am worried that you're not getting the 5.4, because that's where I see a lot of the people who want to avoid the carbohydrates or want to be burning fat, but kind of fail to recognize that the two go hand in hand, and you're going to burn more fat if you have the carbohydrate to kind of supplement it too. And it's where that fat is. So if you want to use fat as a fuel, that fat has to be coming from intermuscular sources, so fat stores within the muscle. So if I'm carrying a lot of fat around my midsection, that's not necessarily being used right away. So the only way the fat is really used if it's close to the source that needs to be utilized. There's an old saying that you can't spot train fat. You can't do crunches and just expect your core to your stomach to go down, because it's just not how the body actually works. So you have to be careful of that. So I know that and people want to kind of go down that road, and it's always a pushback on some things. But I think that, if you recognize that if you can keep those carbohydrates, and I'm not, you go down that road too of where we're talking about quality carbohydrates. So in our diets, we're talking fruits and vegetables, high fiber foods. We're talking about not necessarily things that are going to cause us to put on a lot of weight, like a Snickers bar or a ton of Gatorade or something like that. Those are sugars. Carbohydrate is a form of sugar, but it's not the same. They're not all created equal, right? So the things that we can't be afraid of good quality carbs, and even in training, there is a place for the things like the Gatorade. So we just have to recognize where those places fit and what the good carbohydrates are actually doing for us. They're providing those fuel. They're providing replacement. They're going to allow us, they're going to allow us to actually burn more fat, because if we can do more easy running, we can actually, and through a good quality aerobic training, like a good quality marathon training plan, you're actually boosting the ability to burn that fat, because we ultimately will get to a point where we're kind of in a semi-depleted state of carbohydrates, and so the body will just naturally become better at burning fat, because it'll start pocketing those stores within the muscle, which then mean it can be broken down and utilized by the muscle, right? So we're making it easier for the body to burn fat, and that's what we ultimately want. So I'm not saying go all the way up to the 8.5 grams, but I would be curious to see how many people are actually getting that number of 5.4 grams per kilogram per day. And all you would need to do is take your 5.4, divide your body weight in pounds by 2.2, and that will get you your body weight in kilograms. So you could just take 5.4 times that number, and that's what you should be getting. So I think for a lot of endurance athletes, you're going to see something where it's like anywhere from probably 250 up to 400 grams of carbohydrates a day. And I can already tell people are going to be like, oh, there's no way I eat that much, right? And so it's a struggle to get up to that point. So then what I would do is I would actually kind of look at what you're eating on a regular basis. And like I said, use that something like a MyFitnessPal or whatever you have access to, and just kind of track what you're eating. Don't change what you're eating, just track what you're eating and see where you fall in that. And you can see where you actually are in that. And if you are always feeling fatigued, kind of grumpy, and those types of things, and performance is either stale or going down, but you're not even close to being at the peak training yet, I would look at that and see where you can improve those things. Where maybe you're skipping breakfast, maybe you're not getting a couple snacks in during the day. Those types of things. Those things are maybe things that we can work on that are easy things. Or we're not practicing during our long runs. We're not practicing our fueling during tempos. Maybe those are simple things that we could add in that are going to boost that carbohydrate and provide. It's just not mindless eating either. It's targeted to what we're actually trying to accomplish with our training. So, and if you are pretty grumpy, that might actually have the people around you feel a little bit better too. So if you don't do it for yourself, maybe do it for the people around you. So, but in any case, I just wanted to point that out because I see that so many times. And the thing is that people want to come back and they want to say, oh, I'm just overtrained, it's too much mileage, this or that. And truth is, it might be something as simple as not giving the body the fuel, because you can see it'll take an effect within a pretty short period of time. So if you've just ramped up your miles, you've just started ramping up your marathon training, and all of a sudden things are not going very well, this is an easy thing that you can look at by yourself and kind of make a determination of where you stand. So just wanted to discuss that really quick. Again, I will link this in the notes, and you can take a look at it for yourself. But I thought that was a very quick and easy thing to look at if you are feeling a little bit fatigued. So, all right, I will talk to you all later. Have a great rest of your week. And I did just want to let you know that we are taking athletes. I know it's a tough time maybe to ask for people to sign up for coaching, but if you are interested in coaching, I just wanted to let you know that our three main levels, our bronze, silver, and gold levels of coaching. You do get those for the first 2 weeks free, and that allows us to get all your information, talk to a coach, get you set up, and then try it out for a little while and see how you like it. So you would, if you signed up for coaching today, you wouldn't be billed until 2 weeks from now. So just wanted to point that out. You can go to lukehumphrey.com/coaching and you can check those out. It wouldn't be in effect for the Run Club, but the bronze, silver, and gold levels of coaching that would be in effect for. So I hope you all are well. And again, have a great rest of your week, and talk to you later. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to the Luke Humphrey Running Podcast with your host, Luke Humphrey. If you like our show and want to learn more, please visit us at www.lukehumphrey.running.com for blogs, podcasts, coaching, and training options. See you next time.